photography.
He's so cool!
Okay. Before we begin, I just want to get a quick read of the room. Who here is pursuing a career or degree in the creative field? Okay, a few of you. For the rest of you, good job. Must have made your parents really proud. So a few years ago, I was at the Kuala Lumpur airport. I had a 5-hour layover in Kuala Lumpur. And I felt a little tense and needed a felt like I needed a massage. So I put up Google, exited the airport, and headed towards the closest parlor. When I arrived, I wasn't too sure if I was in the correct spot. The place looked run down. It had decrepit walls, and it was dimly lit. When I walked through the door, there was a narrow hallway with a couple of doors at the end. And then all of a sudden, an elderly man starts yelling at me in Chinese. Sorry, I felt like I accidentally intruded into someone's home. Oh, are you here for a massage? Yeah. Down the hall to the left. As I was walking towards the room, I wasn't too sure if I was going to get stabbed or robbed in the middle of Kuala Lumpur. When I stepped into the room, I saw an old man on a wooden stool. He wore a plain white shirt and white shorts, and he had a pair of aviator sunglasses on. He looked like a hospital patient. He had flip-flop on his feet and had a towel in his arms as he preps the table to be laid on. When I walked in, he told me to take off all my clothes. And I was like, what, all my clothes? He assured me, yeah, it's all right. Just wrap this towel around you. I hesitantly complied, but I mean, he's a small, fragile old man, and I'm a big dude. Like, what's the worst that could happen, right? As I laid down, he asked me, do I want it soft or strong? Strong. So he begins to start touching my body up and down from head to toe, very sensually. I was a little concerned. He traced my body like a map, his fingers pausing at tension points. I didn't even realize that we're there. It was kind of magical. The way his hands moved, it felt like he could almost see me, more than just physically. He knew where I carried stress, where I was tense, and where I was tired. It was unlike any massage I've ever had before. He tells me to sit up so he can start working my shoulders. As he works his fingers around my shoulders, I was staring at some hand-painted quotes on the wall. One of them stood out to me. It read, "Everything had beauty, but not everyone sees it," by Confucius. And then it struck me. So it turns out this masseuse was blind, and the way he perceived the world was through his hands. This man, who had just read my body better than I had read the room, was blind. The way he felt the world, the way he understood me, it wasn't through sight, it was through touch, through listening, through a deep, attuned perception. And suddenly I realized something profound. Here I was, a photographer, someone who sees for a living, someone who goes out to take picture-perfect postcard photos. And yet in this moment, I wasn't the one who was seeing clearly. Maybe seeing isn't about having eyes. Maybe it's about attention, about presence, about noticing. This quote stuck with me throughout my photography journey. Everything has beauty, but not everyone sees it. That masseuse has taught me something fundamental about my own craft. Sometimes we're so consumed by traveling to picture-perfect locations and trying to nail that Insta-worthy shot that sometimes we miss the beauty in everyday life. That realization has reshaped how I approach photography. I began to start focusing on the little things, pockets of light in little corners, the curious relics people hold in their hands, and the quiet poetry in small details. However, I really struggled to make others see this vision too. For the longest time, photography was still not that good. My determination and vision was filled with inspiration. However, what I was shooting at the time did not match what I wanted to share. There was a gap between where I was and where I wanted to be. So how do we bridge that gap? Dailies. A photo taken every day for a year and shared on social media. A few years ago, I went into my first attempt at the challenge. At the time, I was an artist who would pour my heart and soul into everything I made. And I wanted everything to be the best thing I've ever created. But for me, that mindset led to something different. Analysis paralysis. I would obsess over the tiniest details, giving myself an extra day or two to tweak endlessly and ultimately abandon projects because I never felt ready. Who would have thought that striving for perfectionism would not be conducive to creative output? I had a graveyard of unfinished work. Ideas that could have been something, but instead, they just sat there. And I ultimately abandoned my first attempt at a daily challenge. However, last year, that urge came up again. You see, I felt like it was something every artist should undertake during their lifetime. And so this time, with a renewed determination, I went all in to fully commit to a second dailies project. I kept my focus simple. Every day, I had a deadline. Every day, no matter what, I had to capture something and share it online. I suddenly didn't have the luxury of overthinking anymore. Instead of striving for perfection, I focused on showing up. And that shift changed everything. Momentum started flowing. Iteration replaced perfectionism. And each day I created, I learned, and I improved. Not by waiting for the perfect idea, but by making something and improving day by day. One of my favorite stories about creative work comes from the Bales and Orleans book, Art and Fear. There was a ceramics professor, and he divided his class into two groups. One group were graded on the quantity, just make as many vases as possible. The second group, quality. You had the whole semester to create one vase, but it had to be perfect. By the end of the semester, the students who made more vases, by the end of the semester, the best vases, the ones that were most beautiful, came from the quantity group. The students who made more vases didn't just get better at their own craft. They failed, adjusted, experimented, and refined their processes naturally. Meanwhile, the quality group spent their time theorizing, planning, and worrying about their one shot of perfection. The experiment is a reminder that perfectionism is the enemy of progress. It traps us in our heads, keeping us from seeing what's actually in front of us. We become so obsessed with making one perfect thing that we forget that mastery comes through consistency. Through the Dailies project, I learned to lean into my own determination to develop my creative craft. Specifically, I developed a fascination to capturing light within my work. Thinking back to KO, when I left that massage parlor that day, I rushed back to the airport, but something had changed. I was seeing differently. I noticed the little burn marks on the chef's arms as he stopped for a breather that day at the busy airport. I noticed how afternoon light lingers like a quiet memory, casting a soft golden glow upon still walls. I saw beauty in places I haven't seen before. The masseuse couldn't see any of these things, but in a way, he had given me a new gift, a new way of seeing. And a daily photography project has helped me share the way I see the world with you. It trained me to presently observe, to trust the process, to capture what others might overlook. It wasn't about postcard-worthy iconic images. It wasn't about jaw-dropping views. It was simply the act of noticing. I wasn't showing people a new world. I was showing them their own world differently. Thank you.